Okay, welcome to Ruby on Rails webinar series. Today we are going to cover action controllers. Okay, so let's go to the presentation. So these are the set of topics that we are going to cover. So let's go over what action controller is for a minute or so. This is something that we have covered in Rails Basics presentation. So action controller plays the role of controller in MVC framework. So action controller handle incoming HTTP request, and the action controller is made up of multiple actions, and actions are executed to handle incoming request, and then after business processing, it will render either a view or it might redirect to another action. An action is basically a public method of the controller. And the mapping between incoming URL and action is specified in routes.rb file on the config directory. And we'll talk about, actually, it should be config directory, not configuration, my mistake. And we are going to actually spend some time learning routings. My apology. In the next, so next week we are going to cover routing. All right, so let's move on to action controller classes. So action controller class, in this case, let's say we have a hello controller action class, and it is a subclass of application controller. And as you can see, this controller class has a single action method called say hello. And this one has a very simple business logic processing, which create the message object and assign it to hello instance variable. An application controller itself is a subclass of action controller base class. This is a module and this is a base class. So basically, your controller, hello controller, will inherit all the methods defined in application controller and action controller base class. By the way, action controller class is in application RB file, and that's one of the files that gets generated when you create a brand new Rails project. Now, control and action parameters. So whenever there is a request coming from the client, the controller and action keys are actually automatically generated by Rails, and those two keys are captured as what is called the params. And we're going to actually see how those things are actually captured in a few seconds. So that's the way the routing is used to decide which controller and which action will be performed. And once the action has been identified, the remaining request parameters, for example, session or any other request headers, can be in fact accessible as instance variables. All right, so let's do our first exercise, exercise 1. So in this exercise, we are going to actually see how control and action keys are constructed based on routing by Rails framework. So there are a few learning concepts. So first, you can actually add this statement in your view file. It's basically you can display the params. So this params hash is the one that actually capture all the parameters coming from the client, including controller and action. Okay. So the actions can access past parameters using params array. So in your action code, you can also access whatever that is coming from the client using these params. And so, for example, you can access controller value by using params controller and params action. So this is going to give you an action. Okay. All right, so we're going to actually use a Hello World sample application that we have used in Rails Basics. So let's run that application first. So I already have that, Hello's World. Okay, so I'm going to actually run that application, Rails server. Oops. And we are going to open another one. Okay, and we are going to start the editor here. Okay, so this is hello world. Now let's actually go to our localhost 3000, and it's accessing hello world application. So this is what we see. Okay, so let's see what we are going to change. So what we're going to do is we are going to add this debug statement in application.html.elb file. This is the top level layout file, and we're going to actually talk about the concept of layout later on in this course when we talk about the view and template. But basically, this layout is applied to every single view in your application. So by adding this debug statement in this top level layout file, every view will actually display the params information. Now, you want to actually display this params information only when you are working with a development environment. So here we have an if statement, meaning Rails EMV development is true or not. So if you're working with the development, it will return true, and then we are going to display this the param statement. Okay, so let's change application HTML.elb file. Application HTML ELB file. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to add this line right after yield. So in this layout, yeah, this is something that we are going to cover again in the views, the presentation. So yield is basically displaying the contents from this layout. Okay. All right. So what we have done is we are basically displaying the param. So let's save the change, and then we are going to go to hello world, and then we are going to refresh. Now we are going to see it's going to display all the parameters. In this case, we have only two, controller and action. So every request has to have action and controller params. So, you know, this name of the controller is hello, and name of the action is say hello. Okay. All right, so that's what we just have done. Now we are going to actually display user entered param information. So we are going to actually change our controller code so that we are going to receive my greeting parameter, okay? And then we are going to create a message from that my greeting param value. And we are also actually receiving my author param value and then assign it to author, okay? So we are going to actually change the application controller, hello controller. And I'm going to just copy this 4 line and replace this 2. Okay, let me just, okay. All right, so let me just save the change. Okay, and now if you actually refresh the page, you are not going to see anything here. You know, the migrating page is nothing, and my name is nothing, and there is no parameters because we have not actually passed any parameters to the server yet. Okay, so what we want to do is we are going to actually manually send these parameters by using URL here. So I'm going to copy this line and here pass it. Okay. Now you can see my message is peace, and my name is Obama, and you can also see my author and my greeting request parameters being displayed here as well. All right, so that's what we just have done. You can also actually find this information, what parameters are being passed to the server from a log file. Okay, so this log file is if you take a look at the structure, there is a log directory, and you can see development log file, and you should be able to see these parameters. Okay, and this is the same thing that you are going to see in the console. In this console, you can see my author is Obama and my greeting is peace. So this is the same information that is captured in the log file. Okay. All right. So since that's actually kind of obvious, let me just move on. Now, the next, we are going to actually capture the controller and action and then assign into instance variable called my controller name and my action name. Okay. So we're going to just create these two lines of code. Okay. Let me just. Okay, so we go to controller class, and we are going to add these 2 lines, and let me just format it. Okay, and then we are going to display this instance variable, my controller and my action name, in our views. So I'm going to actually change say hello HTML.erb file. So as we learned before, the default view that is selected for being displayed is the name of this action. So it should be say hello.html.erb file under the controller directory. Okay, so let's open the file, say hello erb file, and we are going to add these 4 lines of code so that we can display that information. Okay. All right, we save them all, and then let's refresh the page. Okay. Oh, I didn't change this one to instead of 4. I'm going to just change this one 1. Save the change and refresh the page. Now we are displaying controller and action in our code. Okay. So control is hello and action is say hello. Okay. All right. So that's what we have done. Let's move on to the next topic. Parameters. So we kind of take a look at the concept of parameters from the perspective of action and controller. Now you can certainly pass your own parameters as well, as we have learned. Okay. So all request parameters, whether they are coming from a GET or a POST or from a URL, are available in the form of this params hash, as we have just learned. So for example, as we have done, if you actually pass these request parameters, this will be available as a hash, as a params. Okay, so params category in this case is going to contain all string, and the params limit contain 5. So again, this is something that we just exercised in exercise 1. Now, in most cases, you are going to work with a multi-dimensional parameters, which are actually being used within a form. Okay, so when you create a form, so let's take a look at the form first. So this is the form helper. So we're going to actually take a look at we are going to learn this form helper later on in another presentation. So this is the way that you can use a form tag, and then this is an action. And inside this form tag, you could have this text field and input field, and then it could have these 2 parameters, 2 attributes. So the user and the name. Okay, so the first one is going to be representing a model, and then the next one will represent an attribute of this model. Okay, so in this case, the model is user, and this user model has name and age attribute. Okay, so these 2, when you display this form tag the page, if you display the source, what we are going to see is this. Okay, so it will actually display, it will actually use user and name and user age, like in this array format. And when this information is being passed to the server, Rails will actually consider this is the name of the model, and this is the name of the attribute. In fact, it's going to create this kind of a hash. Okay, all right. So let's do exercise 2. So that's basically what we are going to do. So this time we are going to play around with the hello name sample application, which contains this form tag. So let me just stop this application, and then we are going to go hello name. These sample applications are actually from previous exercises of previous classes, or these are actually available as a samples directory of this hands-on lab. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the Rails server for this particular application, and we are going to close this guy, and we are going to again display hello name. Oops. Hello name. Okay, so we now have hello name. So let me just move this one to the right. Okay, so let's actually run this application. So here again, we are going to go to localhost 3000, and we are going to see a form. Okay, like this. Okay, all right. So you can actually enter some values. Okay, and then this is going to display a response page. My name is something, my age 99 or something like that. Again, we are going to add this debug statement in the application html.erb file, as we have done in previous exercise. So let me just open application HTML ELB file, and right after yield, we are going to add this debug statement and save the change, and then we are going to refresh the page. Okay. Yeah, so we are not actually adding anything yet. So let's actually enter my name here and age 98 and submit. Now you can see this is the model. This is basically the first dimension, and this is the second dimension, and this is actually being captured as a hash. Okay, so now if I see this page, look the source file, what you are going to see is this. So here you can see inside the form, this input text field, the name of it will be captured as a user and name and user age. Okay, so again, when this is actually being passed to the server, it will be actually considered as a name of the model and an attribute of the model. Okay, all right. So let's go to the lab, and so we just have done this one. And now actually let's take a look at the name of, yeah, it's basically, let's take a look at the controller file. Hello controller, and you can see the way that we actually create a user is from this params. So when we actually call params user, this is the name of the model. Basically what we are saying is that we are actually getting the contents of this user hash, and then we are going to use it to create a brand new user, and then we save it. Okay, so that is the controller code. All right, then now next step is now we are going to actually create the brand new column using migration. So here what we're going to do is we are going to add hobby column to users table. Okay, so as we learned previously in scaffold, you can name it like this: add hobby to user, and then Rails will consider, you are trying to add hobby column to users. So if you don't follow this pattern, then so if you actually use this pattern, then the Rails will generate this code for you. Okay, but if you're not using this pattern, then you have to actually add this code yourself. Okay, all right. So we are going to generate this, and so we are generating. Oh, I have to actually go to the hello name. Okay. So it create a migration file on the db migrate, and the name of the migration file is this. Okay, so that's what gets created. Okay, and then we are going to perform migration. So basically when you generate, just generate a migration file. Okay, it doesn't actually change the table yet. In order to change the table, then you have to perform db migrate. Okay, using rake command. So we are going to call rake db migrate. Now we have created you have already activated rake 101, but your gem file requires rake using bundle exec. Looks like I have some version issues. Okay. Yeah, looks like I play around with the hello name things with this. Okay, so let me see the gem file, see whether I can actually change these things back. Nothing has been changed. Okay. Okay, so let me just, you have activate rake 101, but your gem file requires rake using bundle exec may. Okay, so we'll try the bundle exec. Yeah, we haven't talked about the bundle concept yet.